that's what we want. We want readers who are going to be with us for the lifetime.
Yeah.
Until they're dead. I don't want them to stop reading me until they pass. It's easy to get lost in the weeds of the many tasks and the many things that you want to get done. Just getting yourself back on that path of what you're supposed to be doing and feeling congruent with yourself. It makes it so easy to get out of bed in the morning. Yeah, you can't get... It basically throws you out of the bath. You have to get back in. And then I spent like maybe a year or so writing almost anti-market material.
Activate your energy.
Welcome to the Activated Authors Podcast, a show where we distill the core principles of what it takes to become a happy, healthy, and productive author, no matter what stage of the journey you're at. I'm your host, Daniel Willcocks. I'm an international best-selling author, as well as an author coach, speaker, and creative entrepreneur. But most importantly, I'm a lifelong student of all things productivity, psychology, and human behavior. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. Without further ado, let's dive in. What is up, Activators? And welcome back to another episode of the Activated Authors Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Willcocks, and here with me every single week is...
Samantha Frost, Sam Frost, and my dog Chase, who's very annoyed.
What's up, Chase?
Now he'll be quiet because he's a
quiet, just to prove a point.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a trick. Maybe you just like anytime he's starting to be rowdy, you just like, of course, he is Chase, and he'll just get shy.
Yeah. It's the same if I try and like take a picture of him. He's like, fuck off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's the same with children. I won't say particular names because I have company present. So for people on the podcast, if there's a sudden like outburst of noise or something, it's because I am currently on daddy duty as well. But
I'm on mum duty as well, although it's after school now. But
it is.
Mine's been off ill for the past 2 days.
Aww.
Yeah, actually, like properly ill.
Not like pretend Bart Simpson temperature thermometer by the light bulb ill.
No, it's hard to do that. I've got an in-ear thermometer, so it would be impressive.
Maybe just press your ear to the radiator or to the sun.
Yeah. To be fair, if he can build something that gets him to the sun, he doesn't need to go to school.
Yeah.
He gets a pass.
That is intelligence beyond their system.
Yeah. Yeah.
How are you, Sam?
I'm all right. I'm okay. I am extremely tired. I'm also very annoyed. Well, I'm not very annoyed. That's a lot. I am very annoyed. Let's be honest. I'm very annoyed. Just because I couldn't find my nail polish remover and all my nail polish is chipped, and I was going to paint them all nice and spanky new for the podcast. So when I undoubtedly do this, because that's how I talk, people will be like, ooh, and now it's just like, oh. So there's that. But other than that, I'm very tired. But generally in good spirits. How are you, please, sir? Please and thank you.
Yeah, I am also tired. I have done a lot of driving this week. I went and visited a friend at the beginning of this week, and then I went to a wedding on Wednesday, and I basically sort of traveled all around the country for various reasons, and today is straight back into work. I've had to catch up with a ghostwriting deadline, so I've done 6,500 words on the book today, as well as all the usual sort of daddy duties and whatnot. And yeah, like I'm tired, but I'm feeling good. I'm not it's not like a burned out feeling of tiredness. It's just, a bit of fatigue from what has been a long couple of days, but it's been a really good week. The wedding was fantastic. Like obviously they don't come around all that often. I've not really been to one since pre-pandemic. And just the groom was a very close friend of mine, someone I've known since uni, someone I lived with at uni. And it was just really nice to see him turn it around, because knowing him at uni and knowing him since, there was no way I ever thought this would be possible. Like it's one of those scenarios where you kind of go like, this person is never going to reach that zenith, and he has. So congratulations, man, if you're listening to this, which I doubt you will be. Congratulations again. He knows all this. I've said this to his face. Like he was the type of guy that would go around and just basically do pull-ups on the architrave and rip chunks off the wall, and then like break the sofa and then splatter water or oil everywhere and not fix anything. And then with women, won't even get him started on that. So the fact that he's now, doing up a house very, very well, the fact he's now very organized and meticulous and clean, and the fact that he's now got a wife is mighty impressive. So yeah, it's been a good week. It's been a good week.
Well done for removing your life from the toilet, Dan's friend. It
could have gone either way. He was walking on a knife edge for a while. But But what is something you've enjoyed this week, Sam?
Well, I've got a couple of things I've written down on a post-it note here so that I would not forget. I have enjoyed therapy. Yeah, I've enjoyed therapy. So I have it on Fridays, and so I have had it today. And last week and today, I had kind of, I don't know, like not necessarily breakthroughs, but maybe like a realignment of a lens or two. Last week I was speaking about how do I know that I'm on the right path, because like of how my brain and mood and everything shifts all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And my therapist said, well, why don't we just reframe that a bit? Like, how about instead of you thinking that you're looking for the path, you realize that you are the path. And I was just like, oh,
yeah,
I am the path. I am the journey and the destination. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that blew my mind a little bit. And today she was just like, have you considered that maybe the reason why your insomnia is so bad is because you never stop? Like, I wake up and I start, and I stop when my eyes close. And it's not always been that way. And it's weird because like I'm with you, like I'm a huge cheerleader of like healthy balance, and or at least, you know, whatever that looks like day to day, because the whole point of balance is it's an act, like it doesn't stay the same.
Mm-hmm.
But because of the way my brain works, I'm always going. So it's not necessarily like I'm always constantly working on something, but I'm always doing something.
Mm-hmm.
And she suggested that maybe I don't do that.
Yeah.
Like this is a Parks and Rec reference for anyone that hasn't seen it. I apologize, but there is a character called Tris Krager, and he gets really like horribly depressed, and he literally won't stop moving.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, if I stop, the bad thoughts come, and that's kind of like how I operate. I just keep myself. So yeah, I've enjoyed that kind of like reframing, and also I'm vlogging again. Hey.
Yeah. I was going to ask what you've been working on.
Yeah. Well, we can get to that. What have you enjoyed this week?
Oh, okay. Firstly, I love that. I love how powerful just a reframing can be, because it doesn't change the situation. It just completely changes the lens through which you view it. And I had something similar this week. I'm listening to Cal Newport's Deep Work, and I'm going to screw up the analogy now, or like sort of the explanation of rationale, but it's essentially this idea that he's talking about social media breaks, and rather than just saying you cannot use the internet or this for the day, you specifically say I can use it for X block, and you give yourself like an hour or a 2-hour block in which during that period you can do that. And you know, one way you're doing quote no social media, no kind of arguably distracting activities, but then it's harder because saying just a blanket no when you've been using it for so long it's that whole withdrawal symptom. And similarly with you, where you're constantly doing stuff, getting back to that idea of doing nothing. Like I have weekends sometimes where I'm sitting, I'm like, I don't have anything I specifically need to do, and I find that really, really difficult to do. But then having like a block where you can say, okay, I can be active, I can do this thing during that period, it almost gives you that excuse and just makes the rest of it easier, because you know there's a little outlet later, and it almost what's the word, it kind of like steps you out of it slowly. I totally feel you on that. But my thing that I've enjoyed this week is houseplants. So I don't know what it is. I just the way that I'm decorating my house, I have my own house now. Like I really want to just have some natural plants in it. I've been looking at like fake plants for a while, because fake plants are beautiful and they're so easy to look after. You don't have to like worry about anything else. But I'm like, well, no, just get a. And I discovered, obviously, to people who know this stuff, it's going to sound so trivial, but I discovered the power of succulents like in the last year. Stupidly easy. I'm holding up one for the camera. Stupidly easy to look after. and they're also good for the environment, and they're also quite pretty. So I've had a spider plant. I got given a spider plant when I first went to uni, so 13 years ago. That I've managed to keep alive ever since. But I've never really
impressive.
Yeah, it is. But I've never managed to there was one period in which it flourished. Was
that period just after you'd been given it?
No, weirdly. So I had it for 3 years, kept it alive, watered it, did the bare basics, and then on the 4th year, I don't know what it was, but it just sprouted flowers, and a vine came out and it started climbing, and it went from just being like 8 leaves that are occasionally turning brown to this kind of flourishing plant. They had like I said, a stalk with all these white flowers and stuff. And I remember just being like, oh my God, this is amazing. I didn't know it did this. And then it's never done that since. And I've had it for another, 7 years, whatever it is. Do the math, like 9 years. I don't know, 8 years after that. And I've finally gone, you know what, I'm gonna look after it. I'm gonna give it some, because what I've realized is I've not done anything to soil in 12 years, so it's not going to thrive because there's no real nutrients in there anymore. I'm giving it a new pot. I'm making an effort to make things nice. I got given the one that I held up as a housewarming present. I got another one as like a wedding favor. So I'm just kind of like geeking out a little bit about houseplants and just adding some like color and some natural stuff into the house. So watch this space. I've also got a cactus I'm growing. My boy's got a cactus and a Venus flytrap. So I'm going to be so oxygenated.
Yeah,
it's going to be marvelous. So that's what I'm enjoying. Is for me, it's like it's this weird thing. Like I said, I've had this spider plant for 12 years.
Yeah.
For the first time today, I watched a video on how to look after it.
You don't really think about it though, do you? You get a plant and you're like, sun and water, mate. Done and done.
It was like, give it a couple of sprays every now and then with rainwater or sort of non-chemical water, just so that, because it doesn't really like anything with too much like salt and other crap in the water. And don't overwater it. And I went to put it into a new plant, into a new pot, pulled it out, and the bottom is just like a swamp. It's just wet and there's water everywhere. And I'm like, this is why it's not growing. So I've now put it in a new pot. It's lightly spritzed, and there, end of the lesson.
Nice.
So that's my bits. But yeah, tell me more about this vlog. What have you been working on this week?
Well, yeah, so like do you know what? It's weird because I vlogged last year for Nano. So like obviously there was a set time to do it in November. And I enjoyed it, and I thought, maybe I'll do that kind of, once a year. But I was recently thinking about why I am kind of grouping all the things I do under the Mattress of None umbrella. And I was like, well, a big part of it is that I want to show people that suffer with mental illness or personality disorders, who aren't neurotypical, maybe, trauma, all that kind of stuff that affects your brain in a big way. I wanted to kind of be proof that you can still create a life that fulfills you, that just because something that is not your fault is a part of your life, it doesn't mean that gets to dictate your life and gets to take it over. Obviously, like, it's going to look different, and depending on where you kind of are with all of those things, you have to look after yourself and all of the rest of it. But I was thinking, like, most of the things that I do are very helpful to me, but people only really see the end result of it. So like, they'll only see the poem once it's kind of, performed and edited and it's on Instagram, or like they only see the painting when it's done, or, on and on. And I just thought, well, if I want to show people, why don't I just actually show them?
Mm-hmm.
So I just thought that like vlogging was kind of the most expedient way to do that. So I've been doing it for, I think this is day 3 now. Yeah. And I made it very clear in the first one that I am not committing to daily vlogging because shit. But at the same time, like, I like the idea of daily vlogging. I just know myself. Mm-hmm. And so what I figure is, at the minute I've got starter energy, so there'll be like, probably quite a few daily ones, and then depending on how I'm feeling or what's happening, and go from there. But yeah, it's weird because like I'm doing something because I'm vlogging. But the whole point of vlogging is to watch you do something. You're like, oh, it's confusing.
It's Inception.
Yeah.
Story inside a story inside a story.
Yeah, there's been a lot of time lapses and me just gabbling to the camera, and YouTube keeps telling me copyright claims, but I'm using the music on my editor, which is stock and is there to be used. So I'm so confused. I need to figure that out. But yeah,
nice.
I've been working on that. How about you? Have you been working on a hangover?
Luckily, no. It wasn't too bad. It's definitely tired. But also, we'll put a link to your vlog in the show notes for anyone that wants to check it out. But yeah, no, I've primarily just been working on ghostwriting this week and last week. I've got, according to schedule, about 6 weeks left, and then with any luck, that'll be my ghostwriting stint's done, and I'll be onto the other side, which I'm excited for. So mostly that. A few sort of admin bits and pieces here and there, but one big thing that I have done this week as well is potentially laid out a new sort of base for my schedule, because what I've started to realize is that I tend to shy away these days from whenever someone asks if I'm free to like for a call or anything else. It kind of immediately gives me this sort of jolt of fear because I know how packed my calendar can be.
Yeah.
And again, it's one of those things that, it sounds obvious, but you have to be in the right place to appreciate and to realize it is maybe the reason that's the case is because I'm still doing like too much of certain things. So, obviously when you work a full-time job, running these kinds of things, there's a certain amount of things you have to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm writing a lot of words, I'm doing a lot of things. I still don't have enough time to do all the things I feel like I should be doing. So I'm still on this path since February of 2021 of winding back the amount of stuff I'm doing and just trying to find that sweet spot and being able to focus on the things that are most important to me and the things that are going to move the needle, which ironically does move into some of the things that will be in the interview coming up. Little tease. But yeah, so I'm doing a lot of sort of critical planning on what the next sort of stage of my author business will look like, because as I say, in 6 weeks time, ghostwriting won't be a thing anymore, which means it frees up at least 80 to 100,000 words of my time per month.
Which is so many words. The
first thing I've got planned is 2 weeks completely off. So I finish the ghostwriting and then I've given myself a block 2 weeks, 1 week, which is to myself, and then 1 week, which I'm spending with the boy. And it's all during summertime, so it should be lovely. But yeah, so I'm kind of finally, I think, coming out of the fog of client work and potentially seeing the other side of it. And it's terrifying because I don't think I've said it on this podcast, but it does cut a huge chunk of my income out. But at the same time, I'm confident that I can pick that up with the space that I'll get given. And also I can't do this anymore. It's just like it had its place, but I'm done.
Yeah.
Ready to move on.
Yeah.
So
I would just very quickly like to say, weaning off social media and Little T's, your prison nickname. Please continue.
Nice. So going over to our weekly wins for this week from our Activated Authors community. So this week's win comes from Emmy, who said, my weekly win is that I recognized oncoming burnout and gave myself permission to take a break before we moved into actual burnout, which I think is so powerful. Being able to recognize that moment is hard. Because I know that I'm normally, 3 miles past that line before I suddenly go, I think I'm in burnout.
Yeah.
I don't know how it is for you.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I remember, I think it was last year or this year, or I don't know, when I was 5. God, what is time? Anyway, I remember just talking to you and being like, I'm so tired and food tastes weird and I'm not really enjoying anything. And like, it feels like depression, but I'm not depressed and I don't really know what it is. And you're like, maybe you're in burnout. And I was like, no, I can't be, because
Shut up.
Yeah. Like you shut your stupid face.
Yeah. It's the thing. It's not easy is the wrong word, but it's easier to recognize burnout in other people than it is in yourself, I think. So, the fact that Emmy has gone, I think burnout's coming, and just went, push the brakes. Awesome. I absolutely love that.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And it goes to to show a lot of like what we try and support people through with the community, which is recognizing those moments and kind of you can tell when you're on sprints and someone's like just fatigued and exhausted and just not in it. So it's helpful to have the community as almost like a barometer for where you are.
I think like the community is amazing for like everything that you've just said, but just not just for burnout, but for all sorts when it comes to like barometers, like emotional barometer, spiritual barometer. I like the word barometer. But yeah, it is just that thing like when you're in sprints, and it's almost, I tell you what it is even though we're all very, very different, because we're all writers, we're all aiming for like not necessarily the same goals, but we're in the same lane kind of thing. Often if someone's going through a problem, you've either just been through it or you're going to go through it. Someone has been through it, and so you get a lot of kind of help with like pep talks but that come from not just a good place but like a knowledgeable place. And often if you're the one giving them, as you're talking, you're like, oh wow, yeah, this is, I should remember this for myself next time. So it's just, I think you can definitely tell when someone's in burnout and fatigued. And just that general, sorry, I just did a circle with my hands. Yeah, just I just realized, just the general silence of it all is incredible and like very, very helpful.
Jeremy. Okay, so this week's guests, we have a familiar face to
Luke Kondor.
Yeah. So people who've been following any of my journey over the last however long I've been writing for, like 7 years now. Me and Luke started off together. We formed Hawk and Cleaver, started the Other Stories podcast together, ran the Story Studio podcast together. But he is absolutely a just dynamite bomb in his own right of all the stuff that he's doing. Really excited to get him on the podcast this week, and also one of our experts. So he comes in every month or two to kind of be quizzed and to give his knowledge on different things. And yeah, I'm just really excited to bring Luke on and get another chance. It's been about a year and a half, I think, since I've had him on a podcast, which for most guests that's quite a short period, but I seem to get Luke on quite a lot.
Yeah. God, has it been that long?
Sorry, am I boring you?
No, I'm tired. I think we covered this. I have chronic insomnia.
Sorry.
Sir.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it was it might have been Christmas of 2020 potentially. The new year.
Holy shit.
So yeah, Luke is a font of wisdom. You'll find that this this interview goes in many different directions. We won't tease it anymore, but we will say bubble, 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 and we'll see you on the other side. Luke Kondor started writing on his computer in his early teens and never looked back. And now he has very sore eyes. He also runs and produces a short story podcast called The Other Stories, which has amassed over 9 million downloads and has a monthly listenership of circa 200k downloads. Currently, he works from a dining table in the middle of Sherwood Forest and lives with his fiancée Kat, their pet cat, Oscar, and their larger, angrier cat, Alaska, who is actually a dog. It says it all, really. Hey, Luke, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going? Where are you from?
I was born in Basildon in Essex, which is sort of, if people don't know the UK, it's kind of like just a bit northeast of London.
Yeah.
What else you
got? What did you eat for dinner? Yeah, I know you had a bath.
We just twisted the back.
What flavour of soap did you use for your bath? Do you bath bomb it?
I don't know. I don't bath bomb. I don't bath. I have like a. I know. They look exciting. It's just one of those things that I never walk into a supermarket and I'm like, oh, a bath bomb. Like I just don't. I don't see them.
Yeah, never get one that isn't from Lush. Every time I've got one like a cheap one, it's been so disappointing. Whereas if you get a Lush one, yeah, it's like weaponized. Like it feels like it's potentially illegal somewhere. It's so powerful, but they're really good.
Powerful. When you say powerful, how do you mean? Like in terms of its effervescence?
Effervescence. In terms of its in terms of its Jesus Christ.
I know, right?
Effervescence. Yeah. The chemical reaction is potent.
Did you sit there and you're like sort of suspended because off, like, you know, you sink to the bottom of the bath, do you kind of float with the bubbles because they're just pushing you up?
Yeah, you can't get it basically throws you out of the bath. You have to get back in. Once you put a bath bomb in there. That reminds me, this is a question. Maybe this isn't for the podcast today. If you have a bath, do you fill it first and then get in? Or do you get the ball rolling, as it were, and then get in the bath and let it fill the around you? Yeah.
So I tend to. It depends on different baths, because in old houses I've been to, I had the heat perfect and the pressure perfect, so I knew what to expect from the bath. This one, it's one of those sort of like twist crank handles that I can never quite get right. So if it's too hot, I will crank up the cold and then kind of climb in and then let it get to the right temperature. If it's just right, then I'll just get in. I prefer to step into a bath as opposed to rise with the tide. How about you?
Yeah, if you get in first, if you fill the bath with water first and then get in afterwards, you spend way too much water. If you get in first, similar to task management, if you get in the big things first and then fill in the gaps with water, you save like 50% of water, and that's basic math science.
That's smart. That's really smart. I'm also an absolute idiot because I will run bubble baths so there's enough bubbles to fill, and then when I'm in the bath, I hate having bubbles behind me, so I sweep them all to one end and get rid of half of them.
Do you not trust bubbles?
I just don't like the feeling.
What do you behind me?
Boy, it's like what's popping. But no, it's like the cold feeling of bubbles against your back when you're resting against the force. I just don't like it.
Yeah,
I just prefer the smooth texture of water.
But baths are good in terms of like thinking spaces for when you're dreaming up stories, but also as a way.
Are you trying to segue back
in? No, it's all natural. But in terms of when you want to get away from like writing or thinking about stuff, sometimes I just go in a bath and I have a plan. I'm going to read something, I'm going to watch something, and I just sit there and do nothing. I just kind of, my mind's like, now we can rest and switch off.
Yeah, this will be the last bit I say on bubble baths, I swear to God. And then we'll get into some writing stuff. But I will say that I have taken a lot of because I grew up with a mum who hated when I used to run lots of baths because it cost in water and everything else. But now I live alone. I have a single occupancy discount and I abuse that bitch for all it's worth. So I have baths whenever I just want to like take half an hour, just read for a bit. Just it is one of my sort of like last refuges.
Yeah, I'm trying not to have too many, especially when it's warm. I quite like to have a mid, like a warmish bath, like not a hot bath, but also at some point in the day, like a refreshingly middling shower as well. It's just, just any kind of. I like to be moist, is what I'm saying. If I could just get some water on me, I'm all set for the day.
We'll maybe put a pin in the moist talk and ask that question later. I mean, so far this podcast is going exactly as I expected it to go. I mean, for people who haven't realized, me and Luke go back away. Luke has been on the predecessor of this show, Great Writer Share, a couple of times, and we've had like New Year's episodes, and we also hosted the Story Studio podcast for a good 50 odd episodes back in 2016 through to 2017. So a lot has happened, a lot has gone on, and I'm trying to think of different areas that we haven't yet covered. But Luke has also graciously come on into the Activated Authors community as one of our experts since its launch. So you're in there with all of the people mingling in Slack and jumping on the calls every other month or so. I kind of want to start by actually, diving into some questions as they pertain to writing, and just say, how the devil are you, Luke? How is writing life treating you at the minute?
So every day I kind of journal. I've talked about before, I think on those previous podcast episodes.
We'll put those in the show notes.
What, my journal entries?
Yes.
What was I going to say? Oh yeah, but then every day I write down something I'm grateful for. And then early today, I wrote down, it might have been yesterday, I'm incredibly grateful for all of the cool things that I'm working on. So I do feel like I'm working on a lot, like doing the other stories. I've got this Kickstarter campaign I'm currently fulfilling. I've got like a novel I just finished, and I've got to plan the next one. Currently doing some outlining for a comic book idea. So there's lots of plates I'm spinning, but I enjoy every single plate, if that makes sense. Every little plate's got something delicious flying off the top of it, and I'm just enjoying every single aspect of it. I mean, it is tiring, but I mean, is it? It's also kind of fulfilling as well, isn't it? When you enjoy every little aspect, it is quite fulfilling as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a Simon Sinek quote, which is working for something you hate is called stress, working for something you love is called passion. And it definitely seems that like passion reigns off of you. And we've spoken a lot about, your love for different genres and mediums and things. Your stories and your art seems to know no bounds in terms of films and comics and novellas, and even sort of crossing between genres with horror and bizarro and things. What has your journey with your storytelling been over the last couple of years? Because you seem to be in a position where you feel, or seem from the outside anyway, much more confident in the stuff that you're doing than you were at a point a couple of years back.
Yeah, I think when I first started writing, when I first decided that I knew what I wanted to do was to write stuff. I kind of knew exactly what kind of writer I wanted to be. And then when you start to try and sell certain types of writing, you're like, okay, the market doesn't want that kind of thing. I should move myself and change the kind of thing I'm doing to fit this other thing. And then you try something and it does work quite well. So then you go, I need to do more of that. And then you, at some point, I think maybe like a period of 2 years, I was chasing something other than what my inner creative spirit like really wanted to do. And then I spent like maybe a year or so writing almost anti-market material. So stuff that's like it's not going to sell anywhere. Like it's completely like absurdist and stuff. But it was really good for me for like filling my creative well and reminding me of this kind of stuff that I like. And now, come to this past couple of years, I feel like I know exactly what I do, and I know how to kind of separate parts of myself, if that makes sense. So I know
that was my belly for that strange sound, if that probably picked up on the podcast.
I know that like if I'm going to do more commercial genre work, I will do that as part of like the other stories or Hawk and Cleaver. And I really enjoy that stuff. I really do enjoy that stuff. And I know if I want to do slightly more literary stuff or slightly more bizarre stuff that's not as commercial, I'm kind of building a new lane for that stuff, which I'm calling Bod.press for now, just because that's just it's like I'm building different rooms in a house. And one room, this is my bizarro room. This is where I put this kind of material, and this is where I can be that person. And then this other room, this is where I can be my. This is where I can get crazy and write the horror stuff, like the Toy Factory stuff I've been working on. And I mean, there's always going to be crossover. There's always going to be a bit of each in everything that I do. So I feel like I'm just much more comfortable in separating myself and separating those parts of me. And also, I just feel like I always knew exactly what kind of writer I was. Yeah. And for some reason, I doubted that for a long time. Now it's like, I just haven't got time to worry about it. I've got too much fun stuff that I'm making that is very much me, that I'm just there's not enough time to worry about it.
Where did that doubt come from?
I mean, it was probably a case of reaching the end of my 20s. I think like 27 to 29 is a period in most people's lives where they start to think, I don't know, something needs to happen soon, otherwise I've failed. Like something needs to happen at some point very, very soon, otherwise I'm just gonna end up working at McDonald's for the rest of my life. So maybe it's that kind of pressure. I don't know. Maybe it's felt I was a little bit depressed at that period of my life as well, so maybe it had something to do with that. Maybe it all kind of played into it. I'm not entirely sure. But I think at some point I just started to not know exactly what I wanted to do. I'm trying to work out when I remembered what I wanted to do. I don't know what it was exactly. Maybe we talked about it at some point. I don't know.
Might have been around the Run Fantastic. Around that point, possibly.
Yeah, I think it was the point where I started to decide to start publishing more myself again. At least start to think about that rather than chasing markets and stuff that I'm just never gonna fit into.
Yeah, it's real interesting, that journey, because I definitely did something similar with the horror, in the sense of kind of that was where I did my first novella, went off, experimented, did a lot of much more commercial stuff. And then you get to a point where it all starts circling back. And like, I'm writing a novella at the minute, which is so selfishly just for me. Like, I know there's not a whole lot of market value in there at all, at least not from like what I can see or that perspective, but there's something nice in just doing what you want versus like you say, kind of worrying about all the nuts and bolts and the selling and the markets and things. To know that you're writing something that just satisfies that inner creative is there's something really nice about that.
I mean, how do you feel now? Do you know, can you remember what it was that kind of made you go, hang on a second, I need to go back to the horror stuff? What was the impetus that made you go back to that?
Well, firstly, thank you for the question, Luke. I'm beginning to miss the story studio. I think it was just, so I tell you what, one of the big things was I had the opportunity to write an urban fantasy series with quite a big named author that would have, if I'd done it, without a doubt would have made a lot of money and would have been a very, very easy win for me. And I think I got about 20,000 words into that draft, and just, it was hard and it was heavy. And like, it's not like I hadn't written that stuff before, but you know, I've kind of helped ghostwrite urban fantasy books, and it's fine when it's someone else's, but it was me putting that part of me out there, and it wasn't the genre in which I read, it wasn't the genre in which I wrote. And I got 20,000 words into that book and just went, no, like it's hard to kind of quantify it, because it was just, there's just a feeling, there's just like the fibers of your body just repel and just go, this is wrong. And it's a weird feeling to explain, because it's just that individual side of yourself that tells you what you like.
Everyone's got, you know, the Stephen King thing about the beam. There's like a direction where things are supposed to go. Everyone's got their own personal beam, and if you start to wander off away from the path of the beam, or away from where you're supposed to be, your work stops resonating with you. You start to find it more difficult to get the words down. More than that, you start to, you know, in Stephen Pressfield's The Art of War book, when he talks about when people have the resistance, they start to get depressed or angry, or they start to drink, or they start to act out in other parts of their life. I think maybe when you step away from that part of you, the path that you're supposed to be going down, when you feel incongruent with who you are, the fiber of your being, it starts to, I don't know, you just, at some point, I guess you recognize, you think, holy shit, where am I? I'm nowhere near the path where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be going that way. How the hell who led me this far astray? I mean, it's always like yourself that led yourself that far astray, but
from a multitude of reasons.
I think just getting yourself back on that path of what you're supposed to be doing, and feeling congruent with yourself, makes it so easy to get out of bed in the morning. Makes it so easy to get to the page again.
Yeah, and I say often that I'm very thankful for that time of exploration, because it, you know, it gives you that confidence in doing what you're wanting, and it shows you that the other side isn't always greener. But yeah, it's definitely like, because when I first started writing, it was, and I remember having this conversation with Keelan Patrick Burke back on the Story Studio about, you know, art versus commerce, and having a therapy session live on air with a lovely Irish man. But I write because I love it, and I like a certain type of prose, and I like a certain type of writing session and the stories that I tell. And when you get to a point when you are thinking much more commercially, it does, or has the potential to change that lens. And I think, not to put people off, because obviously there is that Venn diagram where you can choose the thing that you love and the thing that sells, and there is that sort of sweet spot right in the middle. It takes some work to get there, and even then, for a lot of people, it's luck, it's chance. Sometimes it's very, very well researched, but yeah, it seems to have been for you. Like I say, you seem so much more confident in the things that you're writing and the stuff you're putting out now. There seems to be less hesitation and much more gusto on the projects you're working on, at least from the outside anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't recognize that so much from being in it, if that makes sense, because I mean, maybe it has been that way, but it's been like a 2 years worth of moving towards that. But I definitely do feel I mean, more than any time in the past 3 or 4 years, I feel like I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And I think also, we talked about this a fair few times already, but like prioritization and like, because the amount of times before when I'd start to work on something and then I'd have the shiny new object syndrome, whatever you want to call it, and I'd see something new and I'd start to work on that instead. And then maybe that's why you get led astray, led so far away from the path that you're supposed to be on. It's because you keep seeing shiny coins on the floor and thinking, oh, what's over there? And you can pick that up, and then you see another one, it takes you further and further away. Whereas like, since I've been like prioritizing my projects quite heavily and making sure I'm working on my highest priority projects, these are usually the most difficult ones. They're usually the things that the biggest tasks that take the most amount of time. They are the harder projects to do, but they're the projects that are going to take me further down that path that I'm supposed to be going down. So maybe just like, we're coming up to the end of June, so I'm going to start having a look at all my projects. I'm going to reprioritize stuff soon and just make sure that the P1 projects, as I call them, are P1 projects, and everything's kind of lined up properly.
Yeah, definitely seems to be that iterative, constant, ongoing process. But how do you deal with temptation when other projects spring their sexy little faces?
If a sexy new little project pokes its head, kicks its sexy little project legs out from behind a wall or something,
The sexy little project curtain.
What is yeah? What is that? I just have like an inbox, and I just put it on the project inbox, and I think, oh, that sounds cool, but I'll get to that. I'll like try and ingest that into my system when I get a proper chance to take a look at it. But today, like, I need to work on my P1 projects and make sure that they're getting done first. I mean, like, if I'm getting everything done and I've got like an extra like 25 minutes, sometimes I find myself just tinkling away on a website, even though it's not important really, but it's just kind of fun. That kind of stuff is okay. But I'll make sure that the big stones, the big boys in the bath, not the little water. This is quite a few levels deep of like inside.
Probably too deep. I can't swim.
Yeah. Well, it's the big stones and little stones theory, isn't it? As long as my big stones are getting done, then I'm okay to play about. But that's the main thing. It's just that is quite difficult, and I think it is very easy to get drawn away from your main projects.
Yes.
But you just have to. They have to be the big thing of the day. They have to be the pillars of the day. You have to make sure you're getting those things done, and all the little tasks that do add up, and it can be quite numerous and quite time consuming. I've got to email that guy. I've got to write up some copy for that email for that thing. You're just going to have to get that in the gaps between your big stuff, between your main projects.
And talk to me a little bit about your organization process now, because obviously I know that you've switched somewhat recently to Notion as a means to track everything. Because we were using like Google spreadsheets and lots of other things before to arrange stuff. How do you arrange your day? How do you employ all of these P1 tasks and everything else? What does your kind of system look like for getting things done or getting the right things done?
Yeah, so before it was all my personal stuff was all done on bullet journals, little to-do lists on paper, which I still use. And the other stories and all that kind of stuff was done just on Google spreadsheets, various online documents and sheets and Word documents and stuff that there was no centralized place to put everything. And since I've moved over to Notion, I've realized that I'm a very much a systems-based person, and I need to put systems in place in order to function. And I found it like really helpful. Notion is a kind of purpose-built for that, really. But in terms of my daily to-do list and my projects that I'm working on, so let's say I've got like 10 projects in the queue. I'll know if it's a P1. This all comes from my tech support background. If it's P1, that means it's highly urgent and it's highly impactful. So it could be like really time pressing, that deadline's going to come, or it's highly impactful in the sense that if I do it and do it well, it could change not just my life, but other people's lives as well. If it's P2, you drop that urgency and you drop the impact. So it could be that it could have a really good benefit on my life, but it's not that urgent. I could get that done in 2-3 months' time, or the other way around. If it's P3, we're talking stuff that I kind of like to get to, and it'd be fun. It would be a fun project to do, but it's not gonna. If I don't do it, it's not gonna break anything. And then P4 is like a change request, which is like I really would like to change my write that specific little short story at some point in time. That's P4. Like it's not gonna change anything. So I just make sure that I have at least, because I work a full-time job as well, at least 2 POMs, I call them, which is a Pomodoro, like a 25-minute burst. At least 2 bursts of the P1 project every single day. That's like my main pillar. And then I have another POM that is on the other stories every single day. And then another POM, which would be on another project that's big at the time. So that could be the Kickstarter that I'm doing, or it could be like a big podcast project that I'm working on or something. So I'll tend to like block out these huge chunks of my day that are all not specific tasks, but they're like they're time blocked for within that time block. There could be lots of little tasks, if that makes sense. But it just means I've got to focus for that specific time on that specific project. Yeah. And then on top of that, I'll just add in all the extra bits, like have a bath, cut hair, wash clothes,
dog for a walk.
Yeah. But I mean, like it's all about making sure you're working on really important stuff and making sure you're dedicating time to that really important stuff every single day. And then all the other stuff, I mean, the P4 stuff, a lot of the time I just don't get to them. And eventually when it comes to time when I could do them, I think I don't really want to do them anymore. They were never that important to me. It's always the P1s that you got to watch out for them. They're the big ones.
They're sexy little faces. I definitely have found myself thinking a lot about that recently, in the sense of like sometimes you get through periods in your work where it feels like you're working a lot, but you're not sure how you're actually moving forward. Yeah. And I'm going through a bit of a review at the minute of going through all my things and going, okay, like what purpose does this serve? Like what priority should I give that? Like probably not as granular as going down the P1 through P4 formula, but that kind of like doing that within my own system, just to review that, because you're right. If you're not working on the big things, then a lot of the little things don't really matter. Like, it's the big things that push you forward and keep you going and help you to grow. And if you've done it right and you're actually prioritizing the right things as the big rocks, key.
I haven't read the book, but there's that book. It's like called The One Thing or The One Question or something. And I can't remember the exact phrasing, but it's like if you were to accomplish that, then what's the one thing that you could do that would make everything else either unnecessary or less important? Something along those lines. And a lot of times I find that the P1s are that. Like if I really hit this P1 that I'm working on, which could be like a big novel I'm working on, that could be the thing that starts a new book series. That could be the thing that makes a fair bit of money, or makes all like the writing the extra bits almost like makes them almost like inert, like they just don't matter at all. So yes, what is that book called? The One.
It's called The One Thing. I've got it. It's on my bedside table, I'm pretty sure.
So I think the theory behind it is all kind of the same thing. It's just making sure that you're prioritizing in the right way.
Yeah, it's the concept that they used to use at my old day job. Well, no, it was on a podcast I used to listen to. Was you can either do many things and go like wide but shallow on a lot of things, or you can choose the one thing and go like super deep. And that's where people like find their niche and find their success, because they focus on one thing and that's what they're known for. That's what kind of brings the expertise and everything else, because they've focused, they've learned, they've understood, they've worked at and excelled eventually at that thing. But so I'll try and find the author for that book, and we'll stick that in the show notes. But recommend that. And similarly as well, I've got deep work on the shelf behind me that I've started reading through. Big fan of like Cal Newport stuff, but deep work in the sense of focusing on that one thing for an extended period of time. Obviously with your Pomodoros, as you know, that's your intense, I'm going to focus on that. And just having a couple of those in a day can make a whole world of difference.
Yeah. And just make sure you do them every single day. You keep the momentum, you keep moving forward with them. And also, like, I guess that if you looked at like the opposite of that would be, okay, I'm going to do 5 things today. And then I'm going to do different things every single day. I'm going to work on novel one day, short story one day, comic book the next day, whatever. And then if you were to like line up, if all these little progress marks or little blocks, you'd have, after 1 week, you just have 5 little blocks all separate. But if you focus all on one specific project, you'd have like a little tower of blocks.
Yeah.
And I mean, it sounds so obvious and so silly, but it is easy to get lost in the weeds of the many tasks and the many things that you want to get done.
Yeah.
So having a system, I think, is a good way to not think about it as much, to get it out of your day-to-day emotions or whatever.
And do you stick to certain deadlines? Do you set those in advance, or is it a project takes as long as it takes?
It should do deadlines, because when I do have deadlines, I definitely scramble to work to them. But there's an issue where if someone else hasn't given me the deadline, I will just say I'll kick that back for 2 days. I'll spend a little longer on it, because I do have a habit of I guess over perfecting. Even if something's like, I could get the Parkinson's law, the work will get done in the time available. I can get stuff to the point where it's ready to go. But then if there's no one waiting for it, I'll just get that one more read through, or like a bit more of a polish. And from something I learned in like game development is like, you can keep polishing something. If the time's there, you can just keep polishing, and it will add something to the end result. There's like a diminishing returns thing there, and it will add something, a little bit of shine to the end result. But not many people are going to notice. Only you're going to notice, really. So it just gets to a point where you should just ship it. You need the deadline to be there to just force yourself to ship it and get it out to whoever's waiting for it.
Yeah.
So maybe I do need a system that's going to be like, maybe an accountability partner, I don't know, someone who's going to say that's supposed to be sent out by Friday.
Well, let's talk after the show. I've got ideas.
All right.
You mentioned Bod.press, a new press for strange writings from Luke Kondor, and I imagine possibly other people. What is Bod.press, and what kind of stuff are you releasing through that imprint?
So it's a very specific type of book. So this is, if we're talking about niche genres, this is a genre. The bizarro genre doesn't really exist, not really, in the sense that it's not an Amazon category. No one really knows what it means, unless you've read a bizarro book, and then it usually clicks and you think, oh, okay, it's that kind of Adult Swim, kind of Pixar for adults or for grown-ups, that kind of cartoon. It's like cartoon logic or cartoon humor, but usually for people who are my age, or a little bit older. So Bod.press, so when I got into Bizarro, it's like there was a small press scene, and there's lots of little small press publishers about, and they're all doing their own thing, which is all fine and dandy. But I just couldn't help but feel like I could do, because the process takes so long. You send a book out for a small press, it takes, I think they run fantastic. That was actually quite short comparably, but that was like a year or so from finishing it. Actually, it was like 2 years from finishing it to getting it to submitting it out, finding a publisher, and then an extra year on top of that for them to publish it. And I was just like, I could do that well quicker and just move on to the next one. And I also just wanted creative control. I really, for this kind of project where it's all about creative control, really, like, it's not for the market, it's for me. I am the target audience for this book. I want to be the person who makes the cover. I want to be the person who makes the audiobook. I want to do everything for it. And it is incredibly niche, this genre, Bod.press. But I think I'm finding, or my plan is to find a more direct sales kind of audience for it, using platforms like Kickstarter, rather than trying to hit the algorithms or find a traditional publisher for it, because I just don't think they exist for this genre. So it's like, okay, over the next 10 years, I'll build up Bod.press and I'll write a Bizarro book once a year. I'll publish it through Bod. And I'll do the audiobook and I'll do the cover. And you know, it would be a life's work kind of deal.
A repertoire, a CV.
Yeah. And if people, and maybe I'll publish it with people, but I don't know. But I think if people read a Bod.press book, it will be a case of, I want to read more of those, and I know exactly what kind of thing I'm going to get by getting a Bod.press book.
And you mentioned Kickstarter there. Congratulations, I'll say on air, for the funding of your most recent Kickstarter. What was that all about?
What was it all about? I've been meaning to do one for a long time, and I think I've been
like your Kickstarter.
I do like a Kickstarter because I really enjoy direct sales. And like growing up in like the small press comic book community, Kickstarter is what it's all about. Everyone kickstarts their comic books. It's almost like they're done. If you start out in comics and you think, okay, I'm going to get published by Marvel or DC, very quickly people realize that's impossible, and then they start kickstarting their own comics. It's just the way it goes. And so I've seen people build essentially amazing small businesses, maybe not even small businesses at this point, but on Kickstarter by creating repeatable small campaigns where they sell a very specific type of product to their audience, and they just build their audience and do small campaigns over and over again. Jody Oliveri of Afterlight Comics is one he does at least, I'm going to say at least 6 Kickstarters a year, and every single one smashes it. And he's just always writing. He does like horror comics. He writes a horror comic, kickstarts it. Then there's another one and just repeats the cycle over and over again. Does really well. John Locke, who we interviewed a long time ago.
We interviewed Joey as well.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. But I just love it. I love how direct it is. Like you're speaking directly to your customers, the people who are reading your work. Whereas on Amazon, like it's just the numbers really, and even podcasts to some degree, unless people are leaving reviews or they're getting involved in your community, they're just numbers on a dashboard. Whereas Kickstarter, you get their names, you get to message them and start a conversation pretty much from the get-go, and you get to sign the book for them. And I also very much enjoy physically packaging up books and take them to the post office and shipping them. There's something quite tactile about it that I quite enjoy that you don't get with ebook or digital first businesses.
Side note, if you lift your head just to the right angle, it looks like you have cat ears. Just get the corners of the frame. There you go. People need to watch YouTube to get that reference. Sorry, guys. But you're right. Like there is something really unreal about publishing through Amazon and other platforms, especially when it's all digital, because like you say, all you see are the numbers going up on a dashboard of a sale, a purchase, whatever. Occasionally you'll see a review. But the idea of actually holding the amount of books you're shipping out, like I did a promotion of one of my first in series a couple of weeks ago, and it got a couple of thousand downloads just on that book. And I'm like, that's, you look at the screen, you go, cool. But you know, if you actually look at like 1,000 books, in your living room, like, oh shit, like that actually has some impact. I do think there's something missing about that tangible quality of holding the book, packaging the book, shipping the book out. And actually that's kind of where some of my sites are set at the minute, just to try and like, you know, special quality deliveries of books, like certain extra gifts, like mail outs, all that kind of things, more direct sales. Just to have that feel of like, because at the minute, well, I say at the minute, like with digital stuff, sometimes you don't feel like an author, because like I say, it's all just dealt with digitally, and it's like you're not really in that process.
Yeah, in a way that is magic, being able to write and publish via Kindle or whatever. There's a certain magic to that. But I don't know, I just think it's a different thing. If you're, for example, one of the backers messaged me and asked me to sign it for a certain person, and we had a bit of a dialogue going about the book and that I've just kickstarted, and I'm going to like write like a little personal poem for them in the front of the book and stuff. That kind of stuff, it feels like I've got a genuine conversation going with the people who might stay with me for a long time, if that makes sense, who might just if you develop that relationship, they might back the next one. They might read more of your work and be with. Because that's what we want. We want readers who are going to be with us for the lifetime.
Yeah,
until they're dead. I don't want them to stop reading me until they pass.
And then in their will, they must force their child to read you. Please keep on reading Luke Kondor.
Yeah.
And there is something really nice about Kickstarter in the sense of you have the option of finishing the product and then putting it to Kickstarter as like an option to obviously raise some money and to get some stuff to raise the funds. But at the same time, you can also have the shell of a book or an idea, and you can find out if there's interest before putting the book out. I like that kind of like coin toss side of it.
You go potentially too far that way. I mean, I personally, for my own, I mean, in the same way on Amazon, you could put a pre-order up 90 days before or whatever it is and not have it written. On Kickstarter, you could put a campaign up. I saw one person who put a campaign up for a book. Sounds insane to me, and it takes absolute balls to be able to do something like this. They asked for 15 grand for their first book. They've never written a novel before. They had like a loose idea of the blurb for it, the sales copy, and they did it. They got 15 grand for it. They managed to get like a big lot of support on Twitter through the like the online horror community and stuff. So I mean, to me I would be panicking, whereas I like to have everything as perfect and ready to go as possible. So now I finished my campaign. The book's ready to go. I already have my hardcover proofs. I already have the audiobook halfway done. I just want, for my own peace of mind, I need to know that it's good to go as soon as the campaign's done.
Yeah, it's different horses.
Yeah.
What is the secret to Kickstarter, and how can people kind of dip their toe into the Kickstarter bath?
Well, so for this campaign, I just wanted to dip my toes into the bath in the sense that I went for a really low goal. And my whole idea for this campaign was to build a system in Notion, or to build a kind of to build like a repeatable system that I know is going to be a very, very small prototype campaign, which I'm going to be able to grow and develop and duplicate and do again and again. And in doing so, I only asked for £350, which is very, very small. It was like almost 500% funded. So I made a surprising amount of profit. I mean, you do make more profit per book as well on Kickstarter. You do tend to anyway, because I think people are just willing to pay a bit more for the books. But so now I have like a complete system. I know all the shipping costs for different types of books. I know where I can get hardcovers, like limited supply runs done. I have everything in place now, so that when I do the next one, I can pretty much just in Notion duplicate the database, and also the marketing's all built in as well. So I made like actual points where I need to do that mail shot there. I need to announce on Twitter there, and I have it all kind of pre-planned out. So now I just need to copy that database, go campaign number 2, ask for maybe a bit more, because I'll have hopefully bring some people back from the last campaign to this next one, and it does grow. I'm kind of surprised by how many of the sales came from Kickstarter directly, and how few of them that I brought myself.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, it was Russell Nolte, who's a big Kickstarter fiction guy. He said every customer that you bring, Kickstarter will match that, and he's pretty much dead on. I thought that way random people on Kickstarter are going to find it and just randomly back it, but yeah, it's been 50-50. So hopefully next time, if I can bring the same people, Kickstarter will match that again. I would say some tips. I would say get everything in lined up as soon as possible before the campaign, at least a month before, and then start to build your pre-launch page, which is where you can get people to sign up to the campaign. So as soon as it goes live, they'll all get an email notification. And even Russell even has like numbers for that, so he knows exactly how many numbers you need and how much that will generate in terms of revenue for the campaign. And like, it sounds like nonsense. Like, how can you work that out? But it was like exactly right. So
it's madness.
Yeah. So his book, he did a book with Monica Leonel. I think it's just called Kickstarter for Authors. I think we'll have to put it in the show notes. But yeah, it's dead on. Like every little number they put in there, every little piece of advice. The only thing I would say, Russell did a 17-day campaign, and he said he sent 23 emails to his mailing list over that campaign. There's no way I'm emailing my list 23 times.
Yeah.
I normally only email once a quarter. And that's, I think I emailed three times for this. And I was like, that's
23 emails is like 5 years worth of content for you.
Yeah, but I don't like to do the kind of throwaway mailers. I like to I want every single mail email that I send out to be like something special. I don't know. I want it to be something that people are going to be excited to open.
Yeah, and again, it's different horses. I mean,
yeah,
how you present your Kickstarter and your brand and your mailing list and everything else, it's definitely like, it is special. It's Luke, and it's you through and through, sort of in terms of personality, in terms of art. And it's something I've always admired about you. You've got a very strong voice for that kind of thing. And I think that definitely one of the things playing in your favor, like the artwork for the book, which I don't know that you've actually said the title on this show yet. But the artwork, just I'm very, very excited to get my copy. What's the book called, Luke?
My Dog Shits Cash.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's about a depressed guy whose life has gone to hell, but his childhood dog moves in, and she can speak to Nathan, the main character, with a mind. She can do tricks, and she taught the kid down the street how to speak Japanese, and she shits cash. And it's like, I mean, you are right, like that whole branding thing, in terms of the marketing copy that I use, and the I call them doodles with purpose, which are like my drawing style, where it's like, I know it looks a bit shoddy, but that's kind of the point. It kind of just makes me laugh. And it is all, I mean, that's just the way things come out. That is just the way I do things. I don't know what to say.
It works. Hey, it all fits together. It all feels cohesive, and it's you, so it's recognizable when one of those things comes through. That it's Luke Kondor speaking to you, so
feels congruent with who I want to portray myself as, if that makes sense.
Yes, and some of that also leaks over into the other stories. And one thing that I don't know that we ever have, but I'm pretty sure we've never actually had a conversation on one of these podcasts about the other stories, sort of in any kind of depth. We've obviously mentioned it because we've been doing the other story since 2016, 2015, if you count the first time it was potentially mentioned. So I thought we'd dive a little bit into that. Luke, what is the other stories, and how did that all begin?
Yeah. The Other Stories is a podcast that we started. We had a Zoom. We first got together at Hawk and Cleaver late 2015, and that I think it might have even been New Year's Day 2016. We got on a Zoom call.
The first ever Zoom call.
Yeah,
it was terrifying for me because I knew none of you.
And we were like, okay, what we're going to do? What's a project we can all work on together as a newly formed story studio? And I think we just said, let's do like monthly writing exercises. And then I think you were going to put them out as like an e-magazine, we called it.
Yeah, just to build followers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think we were going to put them out for free, and we just have our names out there on the Kindle store every month with like a new theme. And then I was doing a lot of podcasting at the time. I feel like I do even more podcasting now. But I was like, I could make a podcast out of these. And I definitely thought about doing some kind of short story podcast before. I think maybe because of like This American Life and some of those other storytelling podcasts that are all fantastic. And then the other stories took off very, very quickly. We hit a certain zeitgeist of horror podcasts that are coming out at the time. And then we just never really stopped, and it's just developed and grown from there. And now it's awesome. Like, I was thinking about this, and it's always been awesome, but I was thinking about this a couple of months ago. So the artwork, when you first look at the Other Stories artwork, it's the green skull that Pi Pa did
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Like it looks exactly like the right character.
That one for people on the podcast.
Even like the other story's logo art now, the name. It I don't know, when you first go on the website and see that, and then you see like the miniseries we do and the Halloween specials, it feels like and then you listen to it and I feel like the audio quality is amazing. It's got humor. It's kind of punky in a weird kind of English way. And the stories can be dark and twisted with like sharp stings at the tail, which we always enjoy. Like your story, actually, Husk. I'm just about to record the credits for those actually soon, and that's a great example of the kind of stories that I really love to put on the Other Stories podcast, where it's kind of dark and strange, but also there's a slight tongue-in-cheekness to it. Of the idea itself is I don't know, it's peculiar in a really fun way. But I just feel like whatever a misty cloud of an idea that we all had at that point in time at the start of 2016, I feel like it's now like really solid. Like it's everything I kind of wanted it to be. And now it's like, how can we do this better and bigger and more and try and get a bit more revenue, which is always the big dream. But I feel like it's so defined now. Like it's I think people, you just need to look at the artwork and listen to an episode and you're like, okay, that's what the Other Stories is. I mean, there's room for improvement, of course. I'm just saying if I wasn't making it, I would be a fan of it. I would be listening to it every week.
Oh, absolutely the same. I think as well, like the fan base and the people in the Discord that all get involved and just the community behind it is incredible. And one of the things that I've loved most about the whole just birth of the podcast to now is just the growth and the evolution and the constant, because it really has been, it was like this sort of what's the word, very sort of like non-physical form that was just shaping and moving. It was just having fun. And in the beginning it was me, you, Matt and Ben, just 4 writers. That was it. We did all the episodes between us. We had a couple of voice actors. Obviously you did a lot of the earlier production work, and then now it's evolved into, I mean, I kind of stepped back a lot from the production. I mean, it's pretty much you and Karl running the show from this point, but how big is the team now in terms of the hands that an episode touches before it's finished?
Well, so this has all been incremental. Hasn't, didn't overnight become what it is now. But we have like a first pass submission reader who reads all the submissions and gives them like the initial thoughts. And then I will take the story and do a lot of proofing, get it ready to send to the narrator. The narrator will take it, record it. Sometimes you have 2 narrators, sometimes more. Most often it's just one. And that will go to the podcast editor, usually Karl or Duncan now, and potentially someone else as well soon. And then I will get that back and do my credits for them. Add a couple of jokes in there if I can. And then that'll go to back to the editor, and then that'll go to quality assurance, which is just one guy at the minute, but he does a fantastic job. He's got like super powered ears. He can hear any fault in the audio. His ears move like separate from each other. Incredible, like sonar. And then what's it been through QA? We also have Ben. We also have Luke Spooner doing the artwork, custom artwork for each theme. Ben adds his special touch for the social media aspects. We have community managers as well now, a couple. So I mean, and narrators, we have like a really nice pool of narrators that we work with. We have a large number of, I would say, writers who are kind of in the inner circle who we accept pitches from rather than like full story submissions. So if someone's got a good idea for a story, and we've worked for them for a lot in the past, we would just say to them, yeah, that sounds good, go and get it written, and we can work from there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it feels like an actual digital studio now. Like it feels like we've kind of nailed a lot of it. I think we just want to do more of it now. And I've just been thinking more and more about ways we can refine the studio aspect and get more collaborations going on. Trying to get a few more co-writing sprints with the people in the studio going, taking more pictures. We want to see people face to face more.
Yes, talking about a potential tour at some point.
Yeah,
to be continued. But one thing that I just really love about this, and I'm hoping this is somewhat helpful and motivational for people, is when the idea to first pitch this as a podcast came up, I was probably one of the most hesitant, because like putting out stories is easy, just the four of us. Like we write this stories, we run it through like what it would have been me at the time formatting in Word, throw it up on Amazon, and that's easy. To throw in obviously the podcast element, and for it to be a weekly consistent release, and to involve voice actors and music and all that kind of stuff, it seemed really daunting, because I hadn't really any experience in podcasting at that point. But then to watch that grow and watch that grow, and at every step it's always, things have always happened at the right time, or they've always seemed to. So like when it got to the point that the Facebook group was getting really big, we had people from the community step forward, really active, and we were like, you know what, if you want to get involved and like help us, do it. And so much of what we did in the beginning, up until only like a couple of years ago, everything was done with no money. Everything, like no narrators were paid, we weren't paid as writers or creators. There was basically no money in the podcasting for at least 2 or 3 years. And then it got to a point where we started to actually earn revenue, and now we're at the point where we can pay people. But like you can bootstrap and you can create something incredible just by putting your idea out, believing in it, and just being consistent.
Yeah, I'm trying to work out why we were so consistent, because I swear there were like, if it was just me, it would have lasted 9 episodes or something. And then
I think that was one of the things I said at the beginning, was like, if we do this every Monday. And some of those early months were hairy. There'd be stories to the wire.
Yeah. And now we're like, we have finished episodes like a week ahead. No, 2 weeks ahead, I think. But I don't know how we stuck to it. I think because there were more and more people involved, and more people were getting involved. And also the streak was getting longer and longer. Like we hadn't missed a Monday for 2 or 3 years. Like there's not a chance in how we're going to miss a Monday now.
No,
like the streak's just far too long. And there's too many people waiting for the episodes. There's too much writing on it. We built in Notion a built-in alert, so like if audio's raw audio is a bit late, we'll get notified about it, and we can go, oh god, let's see what's going on there and fix it well before it has any chance of affecting the podcast feed. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous that we take it so seriously. It's like a Monday slice of horror, but I don't know how we got to this point. It's just quite natural.
People liked it. We liked it.
Well, that's I was going to say. So, yes, maybe that's it. So if a lot of times when you're making creative work, it can feel like as my electronics teacher used to say, pushing custard upstairs. It feels like you could just put as much effort as you can into it, but it's just, I mean, maybe one day it will start to work, but sometimes you do something and you get the product market fit or whatever, or you manage to hit a bit of a zeitgeist, and it's almost like it's going to do the thing with or without you. So you just need to like hang on tight and just ride it. Yeah. And these things that I think they do come in waves. I think you've got to keep trying no matter what anyway. Keep pushing new stuff, keep trying to improve the stuff that is working. And then every now and again you'll hit a wave, and you just gotta make the most of it, ride it, try and use that to get onto the next step, to whatever the next step is. I don't know. Another podcast.
Yeah. It's interesting. I didn't plan this, but it's interesting how much of this episode is essentially about systems. Because one of the things it really allowed, especially the last year or so, that has allowed the other stories to kind of get to a point of equilibrium, is systematizing, and without kind of harping about Notion, but obviously that has been a big player in there, is actually smoothing out a lot of the processes. Because it amazes me now that in the Discord itself, I just get updates, just your episode is now in production, your episode is now handed over to us, and it's just all automatic. And I think it's fucking fantastic.
It was really good to systematize all. I keep saying systemize, but systematize all of the kind of the crap that's not that fun to do. So if we create a new episode on the calendar, it will autofill most of the stuff that needs to be put in there, like the writer's bio, narrator bio, all the stuff that like is kind. If I had to copy and paste that, like go to different pages and pull all that over, like it's an absolute chore. So you systematize all that stuff. And then that gives you more breathing room to add in the little bits of fun like if I'm gonna add like a little stupid joke in the credits in like the intro segment, then if I haven't had to worry about all the crap stuff, I then have a bit more breathing room to focus on the creative stuff, the stuff that's actually good. Yeah.
How hard was it to trust that system when it was first built? Because I know that a big part of having a true system that works is trusting it and for it to deliver. Were there any sort of blips when that was first set up?
Well, so when we first started the stories, I think for the first 6 themes, we didn't have any system. And then Karl came on for volume 7, and then he created a spreadsheet, or maybe you created a spreadsheet, I'm not too sure.
I think I started it, and then he made it like 10 times better.
And then that spreadsheet just kind of grew and grew, and that was mainly Karl that was focusing on that. And then when we went to Notion, for some reason Notion just works in my brain. Like it's almost like I don't know. I just took to it like custard to some stairs. I don't know, but I just took to it, and then we started to do them at the same time. So I created what would be the basic Notion database system for it, and then we ran them concurrently. So Karl was working on a spreadsheet, and I was working in Notion, and then we had like a month of crossover, and we were like, Notion does this a lot better. So then we moved. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you've got to test it in a safe way. I think it worked. I think it helps that me and Karl are both from like more tech support.
100%.
Yeah, I think we are both quite technically minded.
Yeah.
And I don't say that in the sense of like being smarter or dumber or whatever. I just mean there's a certain type of characteristic where you just like tinkering with systems. And I think me and Karl have that to some degree.
Yeah.
So
I like sitting blankly between you again. Yeah, we should do that.
I mean, it's cool though, because like when we're doing the mini course, I like to build the system for that. And I'm building a system for the Kickstarter campaigns for Bod.press. I really enjoy that. I find that so rewarding to develop a system that I know I can grow and flesh out, and it just it feels like building. I think I was on another podcast talking about this. It feels like building or working on cars in a garage somewhere. Like just working on an engine, making sure, like tuning up little bits here and there, replacing parts that don't work, and just refining it and getting it better and better. I just find that so I don't know, so rewarding. In the same way I do with like books, or if I'm doing like an editing pass and it starts to really come together and it starts to like really feel like an actual book. I just find that like, perfect. Yeah. I could do that for the rest of my life, I think. Systems in books and stuff.
Yeah. Systems and books and stuff. Title of this episode. We are running up to time, which is a shame because I kind of wanted to go into some of the core stuff, but I'll ask you a question that we ask everyone who comes on the show that I'm sure I've asked you before. Be interested to see how your answer varies in the year or two since I last asked it of you. And then I have one more question before we part ways. So Luke, why do you write?
I think I knew this question. Why do I write? At this point, I think it's mainly a habit, but I think it's because so if I see a trailer for a film or a cover of a book and I'm really excited, I'm like, oh god, I'm going to enjoy the hell out of that. And then usually when I watch it or read it, I'm like, it wasn't what I was expecting, because I've already written it in my head. I've already gone, this is exactly how that's going to go. And then what I've realized is that's because I want to write them. I want to make them. I want to, I already know how that story's supposed to go in my head. So I guess it's like a natural inclination to want to create those stories. And also, I mean, is there anything better than when you've written a certain section in a book or a podcast, and as you're writing it firsthand, or as you're rereading or listening to it back, you feel the emotion. Like there's nothing better to me than when you feel that, like the ache of the soul, or like you feel that certain emotion. It's like, oh god, that is I don't know, that's doing something, that's hitting something that I was aiming for, but I didn't know I could get to. Like it's heavenly, like it becomes bigger than the project itself. It's I don't know what the word is. It's
transcendent.
Transcendent. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Effervescent.
Effervescent. It's like
bring that full circle.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it blows my mind when you're reading the book and you feel this sudden, like, whether it's disgust or love or anger or joy or whatever it is. And it blows my mind that you're just staring at words, like a bit of ink on a page. And for whatever reason, you're going, "Arr!" And there's that emotional response that comes from it. Not like a baby Chewbacca being born.
Well, so we were listening to the Sandman Audible adaptation on the commute today. And I don't know if you've read Sandman or if you're.
I haven't. No, it's been recommended many times.
Well, the comic is great, yeah. But this Audible adaptation is it's kind of crazy, and it's like there's a lot going on. But when you get into the speed of it, it is really good. But it just had this one episode that was still on the way back, and it gave me that feeling. I was like, wow, that was really emotional. That's why I tell stories. It's like I want to create that moment for myself and for other people.
I love that. Okay, I have one more question for you, and it's a new tradition to have last week's guest ask a question of the current week's guest, and then afterwards remind me, because we'll get a question from you to ask next week's guest. But last week's guests asked, what movie title would best describe your life? Jaws.
Oh, it's like a film that's already out there.
No. Oh. Whatever you want to.
It would probably be something ridiculous. Laundry Hepburn.
Yeah.
Hang on, that's effects. Let me.
Are you checking to see if that's an actual film?
It's got to be one called Laundry Hepburn.
Laundry Hepburn.
Oh yeah, okay. Okay, so it could be. There's a couple of options. Major Look, which is like a soldier who keeps pointing certain ways, and the enemy's like, "What?" and he shoots him.
Yeah.
I told you about Lester Karkis, the curious case of Lester Karkis, who loses himself, has to find himself. The last place he looks, Dale Nuggets, but Dale with like two syllables.
Yeah.
I don't know why I do, so I have like a big list of names. This would be the one based on my life. Dorothy, the Living Document. I don't know what that means, but it sounds like there's something there. I don't know what it is yet.
There's something magic.
Or Crisp Martin.
Yeah.
You know about Trevor Softmints.
I know about Trevor Softmints. Yeah.
Marianne Crayon, Pam Sandwich.
You're just going for a list now of all the ones you've written down.
Yeah, I don't know why I keep that list. And why I don't know why it's always at hand.
I was very quick to access. Oh man, I love it. Where can my listeners find out all about yourself and all that you're working on?
Go to lukekondor.com. Kondor spelled with a K, or go to theotherstories.net. Those two places are the best places at the minute. Follow me if you're going to follow me on social media. Follow me on Instagram. That's probably probably the best place to follow me.
Perfect. Well, Luke, it's been an absolute pleasure catching up. Thank you so much for your time.
Cool. What's over there? Major Luck again. It's me, Major Luck.
So that was the interview with Luke Kondor.
Yeah.
Sam, what do you make of that?
I love Luke. It is now. I know I said it has become my. I was going to say silent mission, but I'm about to announce it, so I guess not so silent. To befriend that man, possibly to best friend status. Which sounds a bit, but I tell you why. Right, my first ever interaction with Luke was seeing his Instagram handle, which quite frankly is the best Instagram handle ever, which is Luke of Kondor. And I was like, who was this person?
Yeah.
And obviously, like you say, he's one of the experts and stuff, but just He's incredible. And I will say that I am in 100% agreement with him about Lush bath bombs. Lush or nothing, mate. Well, it's true, because like normally, like you get bath bombs, you talk about going to the supermarket. I mean, not to go to the supermarket. We all got to go to the supermarket.
I mean, I confess I'm not a bath bomb aficionado.
Yeah, well, lucky for you. Because the ones at the supermarket sink to the bottom. Lush bath bombs float on the top as they. Anyway, that's. I don't want to get back into another 20-minute conversation about. I'm trying to get to my notes and I'm just knocking everything over.
Smash.
Yeah. Sam Smash. Just put that down there. There we go. So I have. Sorry. The first thing I've written down is in quotes, I like to be moist. Don't we all, Luke? Don't we all? I tell you though, there was one of the things that really resonated with me, and it's probably because I'm mildly narcissistic, and I feel like I've said this myself in some way, is when he was talking about the house. In the sense of like one room's the bizarro room, one room's the more commercial room. And I was just like, I love this. And I love this idea of he always knew what kind of writer he was. He always knew what he wanted to do. But it is that thing of like, you start off pure.
Yeah.
And you get waylaid by people saying, well, that's not going to sell, or that's not. And then, you know, you release it to crickets or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very discouraging. And then you start to look more at trends in the market and all the rest of it. And of course, you know, like you said, there is a Venn diagram and there is that sweet spot in the middle. It's trying to find it. But I love the fact that he's come back to himself.
Yes.
And he understands. He's like Luke 2.0. Like he's got the house, he's got the rooms, he can separate himself up to the point where he's enjoying all of the things.
Mm-hmm.
Like when he was like each plate has got something delicious on it, like that's just flinging off.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really like that. And I also, when you two were discussing about when you're going down a path and like every fiber of your being is like, no.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you were talking about the urban fantasy.
Yeah.
And you were like, I can't. I don't know. He reminds me of Gaiman. He reminds just that, like, he likes all the things. He does all the things very well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I just very much enjoyed it. And most of all, I really just enjoy your two's chemistry. It's just you're just both knobs, and it's lovely. Yeah.
It's unusual that I get interviewed on my own podcast as well.
yeah. Although it's nice to know where you grew up. It's nice to, you know, what you're working on these days, and you know what it was for you that made you step away from those.
Yeah.
Projects. Yeah.
This is the thing about Luke. Like, I'm not just a friend of his, I am a fan. Like, he is a fantastic writer. Like, I love his books. I love his style of writing. Like, I've been lucky enough to have a few, you know, advanced looks at some of the things he's written over the years, and it's beautiful prose. And watching him from the outside, as I said in the interview, like it's very, very clear that he's kind of found his home. Which is really humbling to see. And again, it's that full 360 of it's pretty much right near where he started in the first place. And I do think that if you go into an industry like this and you want to make a full go of it and really kind of invest in that, I do think this is just a part of the journey that a lot of people have to go on, because, you know, you start off, as you say, pure, and then you're introduced into a world in which everyone has an opinion, and you do start to think of all the different possibilities, and some of those possibilities open your eyes and some of them move you further away from, you know, where your North Star is. But you have to play, you have to understand the environment before you can then go, okay, no, I belong here, or like, this is where I'm happiest. Because that urban fantasy, like I've not shut off urban fantasy as a genre entirely, but the way that it was having to be written because of the style I was writing with and the people I was writing with is just so far away from my own stuff. And so that was kind of like the big pull away from me. But yeah, as I say, I'm a big fan of Luke. I think he's a fantastic guy, and it's really nice to see, you know, the Kickstarter's working out, and obviously he does a lot of the grunt work for the other stories, and he's doing a fantastic job with it, and keeps the whole machine alive. So it's just an honor really to watch him work from both the outside and the inside. I think particularly what was poignant for me, because, you know, I've had a lot of conversations with him on and off air over the years, and a lot of it tends to come back to how to get stuff done, like his goal systems and things like that. And it was no surprise really that it kind of went back in that direction again, but I really enjoyed seeing the systems that he's building to support his business. And as someone who's looking into a lot of systems for myself, and I've built, you know, various systems for different things over the years, having a solid system for stuff can really just streamline so much of what you do. Like, I don't think we kind of went into it in much detail there, but the Other Stories podcast.
Oh, sorry. I thought he was about to segue into his P1s, but
no, yeah. No, although that is working its way into my system. So I'm gonna definitely go back and re-listen to that for myself. But no, like the Other Stories, it was a Google sheet. It was all manual. It was a lot of emails fired here and there and everywhere else. And not to, you know, flog an ocean, which we both think is amazing, but he's managed to build a system in which there's lots of tables that are connected to each other. All he has to do is basically go, here's a new episode, here's a person that's written it, and then it will auto-populate. If that person's written on there before, it will auto-populate with their bio, their headshot, their links. It will automatically send updates to Discord to let the narrators know that things need to start happening. Once they're done and it's dropped into a folder, it sends the writers a notification to say it's now in editing. And it literally is just this sort of ping fire like machine. And, you know, it streamlines what he's having to do, because he has to communicate with a lot of the narrators, a lot of the editors and everything else. It streamlines what Karl does with his audio editing. And it just saves hours of the week. So, you know, if you, Sam looks incredibly crushed right now.
Just because, like, I still can't figure out how to import my Google Calendar into Notion.
Oh no, I have no idea how he built it. He's tried a few times to kind of show me bits and pieces, and he's done a few things on mine, but it helps. I think he might have mentioned in that interview, it does help that him and Karl are tech heads. Yeah. And so between them, they kind of like bounce off each other. But that's the power of it. Like it's eased up hours during the week in which he can then put into his priority tasks, and you know that's how you get your work done. And one thing that I think the thing that I liked the most that was very, very specific was his use of the Pomodoro technique. So he called it the POM in the interview, but for people that haven't come across it before, it's essentially you set a timer for X amount of time, say 15-20 minutes. It's what we do in our Zoom sprints. And during that period you work without distraction. You then take a 5-10 minute break, depending on your preference. 7 minutes works for us. And then we jump back into another sprint. And the fact that Luke does 2 of those on like the big tasks per day and then 1 on the other stories, like you are guaranteeing a minimum of 40 minutes of work a day. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but when it's focused, concentrated work, and you are consistently doing that 5 days a week, the rewards that you reap are astronomical. So for people who, I spoke to someone earlier today that was like, I don't have the time to write. I keep trying to find it. And I was like, mate, 20 minutes. If you sit down, set a timer, 20 minutes, shut everything off and just focus on the words. Even if they don't quite come, even if you're staring at a blank page, train yourself to do that for 20 minutes every day. 20 minutes is nothing. 20 minutes is like a good bathroom session. Do you know what I mean? Just sacrifice that. Sit on a chair instead.
I honestly wondered which direction. I was like, don't sacrifice that, you'll pop.
No.
You mean a bath?
Yes.
Got
yes.
You.
No, I meant poop. But no, like 20 minutes, sit on a chair, like the episode of a Friends episode, and just do it on a piece of written work. Yeah. That noise is not me. That noise is my son. Just to confirm.
It's it's the what's the book called? The Slight Edge. I think it's by Jeff Olson, and he talks about this exact thing. Like it's so easy to think that because say you've only got like 5 minutes spare in a day, that what's that going to do? But one of the metaphors that I like to think of when it feels like I'm having to start all over again, if like my brain is trying to kill me, is that if I've got a jar and sand and I need to fill the jar with sand, but all I can do and manage every day is to put 1 grain of sand in the jar, that's still going to fill the jar. Yes, it's going to take a long time, but it's still going to fill it. But the thing is, some days you can scoop, you know, but it is that thing of just what you do over and over again, no matter, like, even if it is that small amount of time, it's going to move you one way or the other.
Yeah. Like, I mean, my word output obviously is a bit high because I've been doing this for a while and I do write fast, but in a 5-minute period, I can get 500 words. Do 5 minutes a day, 5 days a week, 2,500 words. Over a month, that's 10,000 words. In 6 months, I've got a book. 5 minutes a day. 5 minutes a day. And, you know, it might be a bit slower for you, but, you know, extrapolate the math and work it out. That was literally how I wrote my first novel. I kind of went, right, what do I need to write per day to get to the end of this? What day will I have finished this if I'm consistent? And it was hard. And there were days in which I couldn't be bothered, but I pushed through just to prove to myself that I could. And, you know, 7 years later, here I am. Like, that's how it began. It's just put in the work and commit to the thing that you want to do. Yeah. Also, I feel like I need to visit Lush now.
Yeah, you do.
Experience the effervescence.
Effervescence.
Wake me up inside.
that's what, it's weird because that's what the Lush bath bombs sing to you as they fizz open. They don't. That's a lie. They are spendy. Like, I think they're like 5-6 quid a bomb.
Oh,
yeah.
The baths I have, that's ridiculous.
Well, you don't have one for every bath. Also, I feel this is important for you to know. They don't make bubbles. As in, it doesn't make a bubble bath.
Oh no, I know.
Yeah,
I know.
You can get bubble bars though. Now this is turning into an advert for Lush. Sorry, we're not affiliated.
Oh my God, I've also realised how stern I look on YouTube. Oh, ignore that. It's fine. We're near the end. So Sam, who's our guest for next week? Joking. I put you on the spot.
No idea.
I do. So next week we have someone who I greatly admire. We have the incredible Tim Levin. Tim Levin is he's authored some of the Alien novelizations. He's done things like Cabin in the Woods. He has his own books, The Silence, which was turned into a Netflix film, as well as Eden, as well as his brand new book, which is, the name's escaping me now, but suffice to say, he's a busy guy. He's a fantastic dude. I was very, very privileged to meet him at Chilicon a few weeks back, and in person, he is just as amazing as he is on the page. So I am very excited to bring Tim Levin to you guys. But yeah, for now, we shall wish you goodbye if I get my little notes up right here and say a massive thank you to you, the listeners, for tuning in. We appreciate you and the time you choose to spend with us each week. And as always, if you're looking to level up your writing and activate your author career, head on over to activatedauthors.com to find out all about our community, our resources, and everything else that we've got going on. From myself and Sam, we will see you next week.
Bye.
Activate your energy.